Hello lovely people, I'm Catherine and welcome to Wonky Wednesday. This week I'm going to make a Hungarian square, and this is a request. I feel like a DJ taking requests from Michelle, who's a lovely lady in our community, and she's also in the private Facebook group. Anyway, she messaged me to say that she'd seen a little video on YouTube in French of someone making this. And she asked me if I would like to do it on Wonky Wednesday. And it's related to the cathedral window that we did some time ago in a kind of wonky way, so it's fabric folding. I'll link the original video to the lady who, did it, that Michelle saw, if you see what I mean, because I think that's only fair. Anyway, so what you will need is a square of cloth. Now you want some fine sort of cotton, or I suppose linen would be okay if it was fine, but it's going to be dimensional, there's going to be folding going on, and you want your square to be about twice the size that you want your finished piece to be. So mine is, I think it's about 7 inches. Yeah, 7 inches. I mean, it doesn't really matter exact, we're wonky, unless it matters to you, but it will end up about half the size when we're done. So I've got a square of that. I've got a square of some thin old stuff for a background to sew it onto before I do some fancy stitching on it. And I've got another little scrap of this gold that kind of goes with this cotton. And I'll want a square of that is quite small. It's not very helpful. I have the scrap standing by. I think it was about 1.5 inches for my 7-inch square, but it's best to just make this part first and then see. You'll see. So a scrap that goes with that. And then I've got some various goldy threads because I liked the gold. I think it's because it's autumn here, so this green with the gold's coming through, and then the golds just seemed autumnal. And the other thing I've got is some thread that's the same sort of colour as my background cloth, just some sewing thread, fine thread. So what you do is, now if you want to be all precise and measury, you go for it. But basically, am I in the middle? Yes, more or less. Let's get in the middle. Basically, you need to mark the 4 midpoints, the midpoint of each side. And you can do that just by creasing if you've got cotton. So I'm just folding it wrong sides together. Like so, and then I'm just going to put you don't need to crease the whole way along, just maybe about 3/4 of an inch, just put a sharp crease on that side, and then you do the same on the other 3 sides. So wrong sides together, match the corners, make the crease. That was someone driving past, I don't know if you heard that, with a trailer going over a speed bump faster than they should by the sound of it. Anyway, I'm just doing my finger creasing on each of the 4 sides. If you've got a cloth that doesn't crease very well, you could make a little mark with a pen, or a pencil, or just put a little pin, just something. But you just need to mark that midpoint. There's my 4 sides done. Now the next thing, if you want to be all measuring and precise, is you need to mark the top left-hand corner of each side as you look at it. About 3/4 of an inch or an inch, but the same on all 4 sides, whatever you choose. So my cloth's very dark, so I would lay my ruler on and get some sort of marking tool that showed up and make a little mark, say at 3/4 of an inch, as long as you're consistent on all 4 sides. Doesn't really matter exactly, but somewhere there. I'm going to just wing it and eyeball it as I go round, because it's Wonky Wednesday. So you do that there, and then you turn it through 90 degrees, you do it there, turn it through 90 degrees, do it there, and sorry about that. Stells, stop it. Get down, Stella. There's some fracas going on outside. So you get one of your creases on one of your sides, you're in the middle point, and pinch it like so. And then you fold that over, and you see it's going like this, all on the right side. If you've marked a point there, you want to line it up with the point. I'm just going to eyeball it somewhere about 1 inch or so, and just make sure I eyeball about the same on every one. And then you want to make sure that those edges are kind of all parallel. Do you see? And I'm going to put a little tiny pin, because I've got my little tiny applique pins, but just put a pin, and that side's done. and then you turn it through 90 degrees and you do the same thing again. So pinch that crease that you made, bring it over, put it on wherever it is you've marked, or eyeball the same amount or whatever you're doing. Make sure all those edges line up. What is going on? And put a pin in it. Sorry, there's people driving up and down and stuff happening. As you go round, you see how it's floofing in. Just make sure it floofs out. Just makes it easier at the end. So I've done this side, so I turn through 90 degrees and I'll do it again. And making sure that all matches up somewhat. And then the last side, there's my crease. Line all that up. This is one of those things that's reasonably simple to do. Once you realise what's happening, it just clicks, but very effective. So now I've got this weird little vessel, if you look at it from that side, and mountain if you look from that side. And now you just want to sort of push those bits in with your fingers, and then lay it down maybe on a surface. And what you're going to do basically is extend this crease. So we'll work with this one first. So if you just push your finger in there and put that crease down and just fiddle about with it, and do that with all the creases. So all the creases are going, you know, their own way. Do you see? Following their line. And do you see what happens? And then you get this little cathedral window type shape in the middle. So it, you know, it sort of will go on its own. I'm just sticking my fingers in to make sure it's all flat, but it is. Just kind of goes, it wants to go there. Do you see? Magic! Look, it's a little cathedral window type thing. So now you can, if you want to, just put some more pins around just to hold all that down while we do some stitching. We've got more to do to that later, but I love there, look how that pattern's kind of formed. That shape, that's serendipity. Oops. There's quite a lot of layers, that's why I recommended a thin cloth. And I've got a super fine bit for the background. But I think I'm going to do some stitching first on it because it's already multiple layers, and then stitch it to the background afterwards. I'm making it up as I go along. There we go. So now I've got some of this Bodlia dyed silk. I've got 2 strands of it because it's quite fine. And then you could do any kind of stitching you wanted. You need to stitch along these folds somehow. So if you didn't want to really see those folds, you could just do a whip stitch, you know, in the same colour as your cloth, or you could highlight it. I think I'm just going to simply do a running stitch along for starters, to sort of highlight the fold. If you were going to then add this to something else, now you've got all this room around the edge, so you could obviously take a seam if you wanted to join it to something else with all that, or you could also of course turn the edges under if you didn't like the fluffy edge, but I'm going to keep the fluffy edge. I'm just going to come up maybe about 1/8 of an inch or so away from the edge. Apologies, I'm filming this in the morning. I would usually film it in the afternoon, on Tuesday afternoon, but I've got to go and help hang the exhibition this afternoon in Shaftesbury that I've mentioned before, so I wouldn't not have had time. And the reason I'm saying that is because I'm sneaking in away from my line. Doesn't matter, we're wonky. The reason I'm saying that is the mornings are much busier, yes, when people are mostly walking their dogs and out and about chatting with the neighbours and, you know, comings and goings. But anyway, so now you don't want to stitch any of this at this stage, any of this middle square on point area. You can stitch sort of up into there. I think I'm going to actually just take 1 stitch, so I stop 1/2 inch away from there, because I'm going to do some more stitching later here. Do you see what I mean? So I'm stopping about 1/2 inch before the point of the square there. So now I can either jump across. No, I'm going to end off, it's too far to jump. So I'm just going to do a little back stitch on the back. and snip with the blunties. So I'm going to do that on all 4 sides. You see that's not remotely parallel to that, but we're wonky. If accuracy is important to you, if you measure those corner points and mark them and are very precise with your folding, if that's what makes you happy, then you do you as always. But thank you, Michelle. I hadn't heard of it, and it's not commonly around. I had a look, you know, I did a search on YouTube, and I could only find one other person came up when I put in Hungarian Square. And then I put patchwork because I was getting lots of videos about actual squares in Hungary, you know, public town squares. So there's this French lady who I'll link, and another video came up. But yeah, it's not... I haven't looked up the history of it actually. I should maybe have done that. Why it's called the Hungarian Square, what it has to do with Hungary. But I liked it because, you know, of all that, you remember I showed you that red and white quilt with all the patchwork, the folded patchwork, and we did the windmill, what did we do? We did the windmill, and we did the cathedral window done the cheats way, in inverted commas, not the conventional way. Have we done flying geese yet, dimensional? Otherwise we'll do that. I'll have to check back, I can't remember. It's a way of doing those folded. And it's gone quiet now. Ouch, stabbed myself. These threads, it's not stranded floss. And it sometimes doesn't lay together very well. I don't know why that is. And if that happens, like do you see there, one thread's pulled through more than the other, I just pull it through firmly and then pull the cloth back. That's how I deal with that. So that it behaves itself. Right, one more side. And the other thing I thought when I saw this French lady make this was how quick it is to actually make the block. And not because I like things to be done quickly, but I thought it would then be lovely to have the time in the video to spend with you doing some fancy stitching, instead of spending the whole video telling you how to make the thing. And also it's a nice little piece for my journal, my wonky log cabin journal. I've got it standing by. But of course if you want to make these into things, I always hear in my own head, and I hear in some of your heads as well, the words rice bag when I say that. Of course they'd make a lovely rice bag, but everything would. Maybe you'd start with a bigger square. So if you wanted a rice bag with 6-inch square sides, then you'd start with a 12-inch square of cloth, obviously, twice the size. It's kind of twice the size, plus it ends up half the size plus a bit for a seam. I'll actually measure this just as a matter of interest. And obviously it would depend how far in you made your sides. So my square was 7 inches to start with, and it's now 4 1/4 inches. So if I took out a 1/4 inch seam all around, that would knock off 1/2 inch, so it would end up 3 3/4 inches. So my 7's gone down to 3 3/4, so slightly more than half the size. Just as a guide, you know. Right, so I've gone around my 4 pleats and stitched them down. One back stitch is enough, it's only going in my journal. So now the next thing to do is put a little square in the middle, in the same way that we did if you were here for the wonky cathedral window. So this is where, I'll get those pins out now, that's behaving itself well enough. This is where you can judge the size of your scrap. I expect there's a formula to work it out, but that's too much like hard work. So you can either then get your ruler and measure your middle square, and mine is 1 7/8 or thereabouts. But you don't want your square that big because the edges here now, because they're on the bias, the same way as with the cathedral window. Do you see how they roll in beautifully and make these lovely little corners? Do you see? So you want your middle square to be about 1/8 or 1/4 of an inch less than the size. But the best way to do that is to just get a bit of cloth. This happens to be just the right width. If your piece wasn't the right width, you could lay it on like that. So it was about 1/8 of an inch smaller at that side, and then make a little snip here in your cloth, being careful not to snip your background. 1/8 of an inch in from the edge, tear your strip, and then you'd end up with this. That's how I do it if this didn't happen to be the right size, but for now I'm going to decide yes it is the right size, and I'm just going to put a snip this way. It's quite narrow, often it is best to cut, but I'll tear it carefully instead. I'll cut the last bit because it doesn't want to tear. Sorry, I'll get rid of that clangy ruler. So there I've got my little square of gold. So now that's got, it's a print that I've onion skin dyed, so it's got more of the print showing on that side. Do I want that side? Maybe I do. So I'm just going to lay that on and put a pin in the middle so it doesn't run away. And now I'm going to get, I've got here ready threaded. This is just it's actually some vintage Silco sewing cotton. It was the last bit on a spool that I pulled off so that I could have the spool. I think it was Silco. But you know, just fine sewing cotton in the same colour as your background cloth. And then you can just roll that in just with your finger and start at the middle. And it'll just kind of go where it goes. And then do you see the corners? It kind of curves up towards the corners. So I'll just play with those a bit and make sure they're going to fall in the right-ish place. And then I'm going to just go in underneath the fold somewhere. And I like to start halfway with the knot rather than start in the corner, because then I can do all the messing about on a sort of straight and even bit. Turn it around because I prefer to do whip stitch away from me. If you wanted to pin that as well you can, but I think it's just as easy really to hold it. And I'm going to just take little whip stitches into the body of the little square, but I'm going to try not to go right through. Do you see? So you keep this pocket. It doesn't really matter, but I just think it looks more three-dimensional if you do that. And I'm just going to whip stitch. So I'm going through my gold square and sort of into the top layer of my green square. If you can manage to put your finger underneath like that, to be sure you don't go right through. And then you can do that. Depends how fiddly you find it. I've got a lazy gold thread there, it's not really sensible. So I'm just going to, that corner there is not pointy enough for my liking. What I'm going to do now, before I finish sewing that corner, is I'm going to push the other side in and see where they want to meet. And fiddle about until I'm happy. I'm happy enough with that. And then I'm going to stitch the two bits of green together up to that point. Just overcast. The stitches come apart, but I'll pull it back in a minute. Like that. Oh, it's flashing up that my battery is low. That's not good. Keep an eye on that. I don't dare plug it in because I've done that before and it's stopped recording. And then I'll turn, once you're happy with the corner, and I'll just sneak through somewhere back to where I want to be and go up the other side. And just do that all the way around, just fiddling about with each corner. I just love this bias edge. It just gives such a lovely neat curve without hardly any effort at all, or with hardly any effort at all. I did a double negative. Actually, I'm worrying about that battery. I'm going to stop the video, plug in, and then restart, so there'll be a little, you know, little blip. This one's behaving much more nicely than the first one. But again, as I come up to that corner, I'm going to fold in the next side just to make sure it's going where I want it to go. See, that's behaving much more properly. Another stitch in there. Again, you don't have to do this invisible if you wanted to use a contrasting thread or... Now this horn's going, shh, Stels. This horn's being blared. What was I saying? Yes, if you wanted to do bigger, more obvious stitches, then that's up to you. And I had a reaction from somebody, and it wasn't a regular, at least I didn't recognise the name, to Monday's video where I talked about the nature of slow stitch. And the clock's going to bong. I'll just wait for it to finish. Just finish this corner and turn it and go up the other side. Yes, there was a comment that, and I didn't entirely understand what the person meant. I read it a few times, the comment, and gave it some thought. But you know, it was a bit ambiguous to me, at least. And I couldn't understand sorry, it wasn't clear to me whether the person meant that that the comment was a criticism of me and what I had said, or whether it was a criticism, or whether she was agreeing with my implied criticism, or whatever you want to call it, of what I was saying. If you don't watch Monday's video, what I said was, in response to something Marion had said, and something that I agree with Marion about, is that slow stitch isn't doing deliberately messy stitching. And the key word in that sentence is deliberately. So it's not being deliberately messy. And slow stitch is, you know, what I said was slow stitch is an ethos that embraces the process of the making rather than the finished product. And somebody, this person, I think she thought I meant that slow stitch was not about messy stitching, ergo people that stitched messy weren't doing slow stitch. That was one way to read the comment. I don't even know why I'm telling you this, because, you know, in case that lady's watching, because I responded to her asking her to clarify and saying I hoped that wasn't what she thought I meant, because she'd misunderstood me if that was the case. But she hasn't come back to me, so anyway. I try and be clear in what I say, and of course those of you that have been with me for a long time know what I mean and what I stand for, because you've heard me say it a lot of times. But you know, sometimes new people might come into a later video and just hear one thing and not know, you know, not know the backstory, as it were. But this is looking wonderful, I must say. Says me who shouldn't. My granny used to say if she said something positive about herself. Why shouldn't we say positive things about ourselves? We should, really, shouldn't we? If we can't be positive about ourselves, how can we expect other people to be? I'm saying that to myself as much as anybody. So I'm just going to do that little overcast up to make that lovely pointy corner. I'll stop getting tangled. Serve me right. You see, I didn't need half this thread. I haven't had negative comments for a long time. Negative comments, I don't know, you know. When I say negative, I mean Wendy, the unexpected gypsy, calls them silly comments. I think that's a good way of categorising them. But I had another one this week. So it's like buses, you know, like they say about buses, none for ages and then two come at once. This other lady, I hope, was either just asking for clarification and will come back to me saying she's understood. I so want people to understand what I mean. It's so important to me. You can disagree with me, that's fine, but, you know, as long as you've understood what I've said and not misconstrued. I'm not in my thread. Someone else I deleted. That's what I will do to rude comments now. You know, I don't even discuss and engage anymore. In the beginning of this YouTube journey, I did used to, because I would try and not pacify, but I would react emotionally to a stranger in the world putting a mean comment under my video, and I've tried to teach myself to not do that. Just accept that that's their issue and not mine, and I can just move on. Anyway, someone under the borrow video from months ago basically said that I should be doing British stitching. I had no business doing Japanese stitching, and also, what did I know about poverty? I was probably rich. But it was, you know, it was said in a very mean way, so I just deleted it. Comments like that, you know, I just delete them. I don't even know why I'm telling you about it, only because of the other comment, which I wasn't sure about. And there was an aeroplane going over. Oh dear. Right, so here's my last corner come in, and that's going to also behave itself. It's just that first one, for some reason, although it looks fine now. I wrangled it. But thank you, Michelle, so much for sharing this with me. And that's, you know, if any of you come across something and you'd like me to, you know, like a DJ, like I said, I do take requests. I'm not saying I'll do them. They have to kind of fit in with my own style, if you like. But because I'd done a lot of this dimensional stuff before, and like I said, this is related very much to the cathedral window, it fit right in. It reminds me of a story about suggestion boxes. You know, places have suggestion boxes. So it's probably what they call an apocryphal story. It maybe never happened, or it's happened 100 times, but a suggestion box was installed somewhere, and the first suggestion someone posted in it was to remove the suggestion box. Made me laugh. Oops. There we go. So I've done my 4 corners. I just need to finish up this last side because I started in the middle, if you remember. Just checking I'm still recording. I'm now paranoid since that happened that time. Sneak through to there. Don't get a knot in. You've only got to make a few more stitches now. Just tuck the tail in as I go. Go in, tail. Oh, there we go. And this week is, well, it's a busy week for me because of the exhibition, but it's also Park Home Life week, because I'm doing those fortnightly at the moment, just to see how that goes in terms of, you know, a nice rhythm for you and for me. So this Friday it will include a little tour of the exhibition, and this, I know there's been 2 exhibitions back to back, but this, I mean, you know, if you're getting fed up with watching my exhibition videos, don't watch them, but I'm going to go through there to the back just of the top, if you see what I mean, and just try and hide my back stitch in there. Make sure I've pulled it through, yeah, because we have a year, an exhibiting year and a non-exhibiting year as a group, the group that I'm in, which is called CQ West, in case you don't know. And so this is actually an extra exhibition we were offered this opportunity from this gallery in Shaftesbury where we've exhibited before, because I believe they had a cancellation. Right, so now I'm going to put it on its background, I think. Am I? You see on the back as well, you've got this lovely kind of four-patch effect with the folds. Look at that. It's really cool. So, but now, if you wanted to put that into something and you didn't like the bulk, I don't think there's anything stopping you from trimming that away. And also you could save the cloth into the bargain. I'm just going to check because I've never done it. Maybe I should do it and see if mine falls to bits. Because I feel that's redundant now, unless you had it somehow as a two-sided thing and you wanted it. Shall I just go for it? I wish I had the snippies, but they're over there. She's cutting her work. What is she doing? So I'm just leaving a sort of seam allowance type thing and making sure I'm only in that layer. This was not in either of the two videos I watched. This is just me messing about. Because, well, number one, it takes some of the bulk away, and number two, it saves some little bits of cloth. So do you see what I'm doing? I'm just going parallel to that fold because there's a whole other layer there. I just don't dare cut away any more than that. And then I'm staying about 1/4 of an inch away from where I can see that stitching line that I did. You see, don't cut yours if you're stitching along with me. Wait until I've done mine and see if it goes okay. And you don't have to do this at all if you don't want to, of course. It's just a thought I had. So look, but look, I've saved those 4 little rectangles. Yeah, I don't think anything bad happened. I think that's all fine. Because that's just all in behind. Possibly you could even take more away if you wanted to. Look, those little 4 points you could take away as well, I think. But, you know, I'll leave it like that. I might just actually, now I've started, I'm going to just trim. I hope you can see what I'm doing if you need to. I'm just going to trim a little bit more back because here I've got this fold which is a double layer. Do you see? And this fold which is a double layer. And here is the background piece. This here, this bit in the middle, stay up. This bit in the middle here is behind this. I'll stitch that down. I didn't mean to. No, I haven't. Now there's a hole. See? Now there's a hole. Do you see the hole? A little hole there. Don't cut any more. Don't cut any more, Catherine. Leave it like that. There is a hole. I wouldn't necessarily advise doing that. This is from a journal, so I think it's okay. But I think if you're going to make it into a rice bag or something, don't do what I just did, because there is now, look, hole. But it's from a journal, so it's fine. Don't do that. I'll leave it in though. I'm not editing. We're being real here. I'm going to stitch it onto there. I mean, if you're going to stitch it onto a background and do lots of fancy stitching on the top, I don't think there's a problem. I've got some of this Lazy Girl green left. I'm going to use it just to baste it around the edge, I think, to my background, just because I like to do that. So fine, this sewing cotton, I can't make a knot, so I'm not going to bother. Put some pins in, I suppose. I do, however, encourage that kind of attitude of Jude Hill, whose spirit cloth, who I've deeply inspired by over the years, calls it what-ifery, where you say what if. What if I cut the back of my work that I've just spent half an hour stitching, or however long it is? But, you know, that's how you learn, and it's also part of the process. And with cloth you can always stitch something else over it. It's very rarely the end of the world. Well, it's never the end of the world, but I mean it's very rarely ruined. So I'm going to just put a tiny back stitch on the front. And then visible baste, if you're new here, is a tiny back stitch on the front and a longer stitch on the back, and it comes from originally from garment making. It's known as the prick stitch. It's used for attaching linings invisibly into sleeves of jackets and things like that. But I learnt it from Jude Hill, the aforementioned Jude Hill, as a way of basting layers of cloth together in such a way, this is so invisible that even I can't see it, that you don't have to take the basting out. That's one big advantage of it. And the other advantage is you don't have visual distraction on your work of basting stitches that you are going to take out, you know, standard big basting stitches. It enables you to get all the pins out before you start your fancy stitching, so it makes the process nicer. And it kind of melds the layers of cloth into one. If I'm doing collage, I'll often do lines of invisible baste an inch or two apart through the whole piece before I start my visible, you know, fancy stitching, my decorative surface stitching. And I know all those of you who have been here since the beginning of the year know all about that, the invisible base, but you know, we get new people all the time, and if you're new here, welcome, welcome. You're very welcome. I really can't see this thread at all. Which is good when you want it to be invisible. And it gives a lot, yeah, apart from melding the layers together, it gives a lovely kind of surface texture to the cloth without being visually loud. If you use a matching thread, it's virtually invisible. So I take a back stitch of about 2 or 3 threads of the cloth, no more, just a tiny little dot. I've got hardly any left of this. I'm just going to go as far as I can as the last side. Until it runs out. And call it good enough. I've got some tea there that's now stone cold. Who was the lady that went yuck at the tea? Was it Anne? Was it you, Anne? Can't remember. I'm drinking cold tea. If it freaks you out, pretend it's hot. Oh, delicious hot steaming tea. Okay, that's good enough. Maybe squeak one more. If I pull through to the back and I can't end it off, I don't mind because it's only the basting. There we go. So you see on the back, it's nearly a continuous line of the bigger stitches and the tiny little back stitches in between. So now we're going to do some fancy stitching. I want to do something in the middle, don't I? Of course I do. On the other hand, maybe I shouldn't. I don't know. Maybe I should because of cutting it. Maybe I should for structural reasons. I might do some seed stitch because autumn, you know, the wheel of the year, the way the wheel turns. I might use this bit of brown that I used on Monday since it's sitting here so nicely. And things are setting seed. And some seeds will... Now I'm going to go right through because of for structural reasons, like I said. But you could, I guess, kind of put your finger under there and try and only stay in the top layer. I'm coming through from the back. Now I'm going to do French knots, I think. Let's do a few French knots. Oh, that's really hard to get through. This is crochet cotton. I think I dyed with the roots of flag iris, not flag iris, the other one, Iris Germanica. I'll do 2 wrap knots because it's quite thick. It's not called flag iris, is it? You know, the one with the rhizomes that you see above the ground that you plant with them? No, that's really not nice. But now I'm committed, so I'm going to cut that off. This is a video about me cutting things. I don't often take stitches out. It's not because I don't like the look of the stitch, because I don't like stitching this crochet cotton through all these layers. And it's more important to me that I like the doing of it than the finished piece. Let's get rid of the hole. Sorry, thanks for playing, but not for this. So I've got instead this silk which has been dyed with gallnuts that was given to me by a friend of mine. So that's not going to show up as strongly, but I think it's nice. I might take a smaller needle. It's quite strandy, this silk. Has it all gone through? No, I missed a strand. I do think I'm going to have to get a needle threader one of these days. These bigger needles. Try the other end. Sometimes it's the way the thread's plied. There we go. And I know this is quite tricksy to stitch with. It's beautiful thread, but it kind of comes unplied as you stitch. So I've got a shorter length. I've got a normal length. A length I should normally use, They say from your tip of your fingers to your elbow, I think, proper embroidery people. Right. But I usually go for about an arm's length. That's better. That feels nicer. So I'm going to do some granitos. So that is like 3 stitches on the spot. So you come, and we did it on Monday, or I did it on Monday. Come out through the same point, because they means little grains. Get the thread to one side and go back down through the same hole. And then come back up. I should have gone in and out in one movement. It's easier. I'll do it next time. And then lay the other thread the other side, but go in through the same hole. Put my thumbnail there so it falls where I want it. There we go. So it looks like a little grain of rice. Let's do another one here. I'm not going to do very many. Just going to do a few. No, not a French knot. No, we did a French knot then. So go in, and I'm not going to go through all the layers because it's not necessary really, even with the cutting that I did. Because it's quite thick. And one. Two. And then the third one you just shoot through. You're right, Stels. There we go. She had a walk this morning. We walked up the lane. I made a little video which will be part of Park Home Life on Friday. And she went into a field at one point and came out again, and I thought she was after pheasant because I heard a pheasant croak, croak? No, that's frogs. You know, when they go that noise. That sounds like a peacock. You know, if you know pheasants. A bird noise. And she probably was, but she also, while she was off in the field out of sight, found some fox poo and had a lovely roll in it. And she gets her head and her chin and her beard and her ears covered with as much of it as she can. And she thinks it's delightful, but I am of course not agreeing, because if you've never smelt fox poo, it's not pleasant. So she had to have a bath. And I didn't wash her all over, I just washed her head and her neck and, you know, her beard and so on. Because she's got this skin allergy, it's not good to wash her unnecessarily often, because it strips all the oils from her skin. But when she's been rolling in fox poo, no amount of burning nag shampoo can disguise it. I'm just varying the direction of my granitos in the same way as I would with seed stitch. To make sure I keep this thread twisted in its plies, otherwise it looks different when it lays. There, it's gone a bit twisty. I'm going to put one right up here, so I've got room for a 7th one because of the odd numbers thing. Yeah, and also because she does sleep on my bed and she does lay on the sofa. I mean, I brush her regularly, she likes a brush. Because of the poodle in her, she doesn't lose her hair. She has to be clipped. But she still has a nice brush every now and then. Okay, one more of these little beauties. Obviously you can make these as big or as small as you like. I'm making them quite big. You see how this thread's gone all untwisted? I'll just twist it back a bit. Should have had an even shorter length, really. Where are you going now? Don't go barking. Someone talking outside again. Well, that one's gone a bit twisty, but it's okay. There we go. And they're all a bit squashed over there. But, you know, I don't mind. If you really wanted them all laid out evenly spaced, then you could make little pencil marks, you know, where you wanted them to go. Blunties. Put that in the orzo because it's preciousness. I think I'll just do some more of this gold around the edge. I might do 2 lines of it. I think I'll just link those first stitching lines I made. I'll start with 1 line around the very edge, I think, or, you know, a distance in. See how that looks and then decide what's coming next. Styles? She's probably just licking her feet because they're a bit damp, but it's a reflex reaction from me to ask her not to because of the allergy thing. Although she's, you know, she's on medication, she's doing okay. Now she'll scratch just to prove you wrong. I have also, I hope it's doing okay. I hope it's, you know, done a short. I've never done a short before, but as a little video I took of Fred and Stella wrestling. They play a game with the bedroom rug where Fred goes under it and pretends he's not there, although there's a big lump of, you know, a cat-shaped lump under the rug. And then Stella comes along and sort of jumps on the lump of rug that is Fred, and then Fred starts sticking his little arm out, and then a big wrestling match ensues with the rug involved as well. But as I was uploading it, it's only 30 seconds. It was just, you know, a bit of fun really. I then wondered if people might see it who don't know Fred and Stella and think it was that Stella was attacking him. Anyway, we'll see. If I get that kind of reaction, I'll just take it off again. But it was really for all you to see, because I know you like to see Fred and Stella wrestling. But I don't know what happens with shorts if, you know, who sees them. So I think it's different to these videos. I don't know. We'll see. I just thought, oh, I'll do that, and, you know, I did it. We'll see what happens. So, yeah, this is making sort of arm shapes, isn't it? Like windmill type. They're called the blades of a windmill. So have a little look. Oh yes, I'm liking that. I'm just wondering if I do some echoes round the... I might do that. I'll finish this side first. Now I can hear a siren. Isn't it funny how some days it's completely quiet and peaceful all day long, and other days all kinds of stuff going on. I don't think you could hear the siren. I think it was too far away. And this is, oh yes, there's plenty to get me back round where I started. That one on the corner went a bit wonky, but am I bothered? No, I'm not. Right. You maybe heard that siren. I hope everybody's okay. There's sirens, I always think, well, someone is having a bad day. This is probably not enough to go all the way around, but the triumph of hope over experience, I'm going to try. So I'm just going to do, I think, running stitches just off the edge of my little middle thingy bob. Just following the curve. You could as well, if you like doing beads and things, put a little bead on the points, that would be cute. Got there. You can do all kinds of things, can't you? It really limits your imagination. This is definitely not going to be long enough. But I do like that curve shape of the stitching, just as like as a shadow almost to the you know, the window. So even though I know I'm going to have to get new thread, I'm going to use as much of this as I can because it's precious. I'll probably just finish this side. And have I got a bit in the orts? Is that it? Nope. Nope, that's not it. I don't think there's any in there. To get another bit. I want to double it up so it matches, but I'm going to get the one length and match the two cut ends rather than threading it through and stitching with it double. I find that it stays together better. I mean, this isn't great at staying together, like I said, but if you do it that way rather than just threading one end through and, you know, knotting the two ends double, it's better behaved, let's put it that way. Right, so I've just got to do this last side, and we can put it in the journal. And this is, it's been very nice doing this kind of stitching here, instead of just the, you know, telling you how to do it type video. I hope you've enjoyed it as well. And I do plan on doing more stitching on my knee type videos where possible. I could have done this part on my knee if I'd thought of it, because I like that. I did that a couple of weeks ago in the Monday project, and many of you said you like the sort of relaxed feel of it as well. And I've now got a tripod. I invested in a tripod because I didn't have one, and even when I do the pieces to camera, you should see how I balance my phone so that I can film myself. It's a bit of a, you know, it's been something I've been thinking about for a while. Because before the phone was sort of balanced on cushions on the back of a chair and angled and propped up, and it, you know, wasn't very professional to say the least. And also if I'm filming DIY, not DIY, I'm not going to turn it into a DIY channel, but if I'm showing you things, you know what I mean. And so I bought a very small collapsible tripod, which I'll also be able to take out with me if I want to film myself gathering leaves, or, you know, I want my hands free to tell you things. So that came yesterday, so I'll have a play with that. Anyway, right. But it was like, you know, budget. We'll see if it is any good. Okay, you got good reviews. So, the journal. I love this little square journal and all its entries. Even though I'm not putting words in it, I might go back at one point and put words in it when it's filled up. We'll see. So we'll put that there. I want some green. I don't dare use that because it's kind of sharp, if you know what I mean by sharp thread, and I'm stitching it to paper. A softer thread I think will work better and not cut the paper the same. That'll do. Pig. Bit of floss. Although actually no, I think I'll stitch it. Change my mind. I'll stitch it through the beige. No, I don't want you. Don't put a needle in your mouth, Catherine, when the people are watching you. Well, I know you can't see my mouth, but if the needle disappeared somewhere up here and then reappeared, you'd know exactly where I'd put it, wouldn't you? Oh, Is that long enough? Just. Maybe you'd think I'd stuck it in my jumper. Mind you, that can also be dangerous. I've done that before now. I think it was pins rather than a needle, I'm not sure. Stuck it in the front of my jumper for some reason and forgot. Then along comes the night time and you want to go and put your PJs on and you pull your jumper off over your head and ouchie, you get stabbed up the nose. So be careful of that. Has anybody done that? If you've done that as well, please tell me. It'll make me feel less stupid that someone else has, you know. I nearly said being equally stupid. You know what I mean. Right, I'm just going to stitch this along this edge. So, Hungarian Square, I will, I should have in advance, like I said, had a look to see why it's called that. I will have a look, and you can, I know, I've seen Marion does it, I think. You can do a comment on your own video and pin it so it stays at the top. But also you can put things in the description. So I'll do one or two of those things. One of those things if I can find out why it's called an Hungarian Square or a Hungarian Square. I'll write it somewhere where you can see. Save you googling yourself unless you want to. That's just long enough for one more stitch. So the French lady's video, like I said. So you know, it's very short. I think it's about 5 minutes her video. Do go and give her a thumbs up and you know show her some love. Show her some amour, amitié, friendship. There we go. There's my wonky Hungarian square in my journal. The back's quite sweet as well. So I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to you joining me next time for more cloth tales. Bye bye.